the round table with Mamlil. I want to thank our sponsor, Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give Cora Holbrook a call. It's area code 781-342-0252. Guaranteed Rate, located at 75 State Street on the first floor in downtown Boston, Mass. Guaranteed Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. You know, Dr. Bradley, it's good to be back here, but man, it's 2 hours in the can already, as they say in the radio world, right? You know, a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on.
When you're having fun, time tends to fly.
Yeah.
I mean? We have a lot to talk about.
I know.
You know, and I'm just going to go back to the last hour. I'm so disappointed in that selection. I mean, the other folks, I don't know enough about them to make it, other than Dickerson, I think is an excellent selection.
Even the other ones, nothing like this when you're talking about if these folks were on the outside and they had their disagreements about policing, they weren't in place to implement any policy changes.
Exactly.
This person was.
Yeah.
So you know what he's looking for based on his behavior, right? The other folks, whether if they were former somewhere else, he ran the Boston Police Department. In my opinion, he ran it into the ground. Yeah. You know, and so
he definitely cost the city a lot of money.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. She knows this. She knows, because we brought it to her attention when she was a city councilor, asking them to settle these lawsuits. So she knows the money this person has cost, and this is the person I'm just mind-boggling. But like I said, we're going to try to get through it. We're going to continue. It's good to see folks calling that folks are now paying attention, and they were saying they didn't know all this stuff. It's right there, like I said.
But the thing is that these type of selections don't happen in a vacuum. Excuse me. Who talked to her? Who she's listening to? Who called her and say, this individual was a good selection? Because that tells me exactly, what she's trying to do. Who she's listening to going to tell me pretty much, what type of policy and what type of government she's going to put in place.
Yeah, well, it's not progressive if she's looking at Ed Davis. No. So we're going to talk about, we're going to listen to this piece here from 60 Minutes, a water problem that black folks are having down in a little town down in Alabama there, when Pastor Hobbs has that queued up. It's very troubling. 2022, and when you listen to this, you think, Dr. Brad, I know you go back talking about your historically family. I mean, you would think that we didn't have modern day technology, modern day plumbing. Listen to this. It's gonna.
Wow.
Pastor Hobbs.
Are we good?
There's where the pipe come up to here.
I see.
Where the septic tank is.
This is where the septic tank is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to collect some samples, if you don't mind.
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you.
Okay. In 2017, scientists from Baylor College of Medicine published a study that caused a stir.
Like I said, a little bit of bad odor doesn't hurt me at all.
It demonstrated that a small sample of people in Lowndes County, Alabama, had hookworm, a parasitic infection normally found in developing countries, where people are exposed to raw sewage.
I'll mark it for here.
Now, the same researchers are performing a follow-up study to understand the link between the parasite and sanitation issues in rural Alabama.
Come around that side. Yeah.
Walter McMeans has lived in Alabama his whole life.
Is this raw sewage?
Yeah.
How long has it been like this?
Years.
Walter lives in an area of Alabama known as the Black Belt, a nickname which originally referred to both the racial makeup of the people living in the region and its dark clay-like soil. The ground doesn't absorb water well, so special septic tanks are required, which can run upwards of $10,000. Because of this, many opt for cheaper traditional septic tanks that fail.
Every time you use water, you're worried that the septic system might have some sort of failure.
I'm not worried about it. It does. And as the year passes, the problem gets worse and worse. If we don't get something done about it, I don't know what you want to do. But no one should have to live like this. They be embarrassed by other people that come and they bring their children, that they come once and they see the situation that you have. They're not coming back, and I can't blame them. Because I wouldn't.
After sampling water and soil in Walter's backyard, Rogelio Mejia and his colleague Megan McKenna visited two other homes in Lowndes County. One used PVC piping to discharge raw sewage on the ground nearby.
What are the conditions that cause the environment in some areas to be prone to hookworm transmission?
Right. So the number one thing, besides the proper humidity, how does
it go from the human to the soil, and that's improper sanitation.
What do you mean by improper sanitation?
So human waste.
Okay.
The people who are infected release eggs. Those eggs are part of the excrement.
Okay.
And if they end up on the ground and become the hookworm, the infectious hookworm, and then you step on them or walk by, and it goes into your skin and goes through the cycle. So it's a human to soil, soil to human infection.
Hookworm is a parasite that feeds on the blood of its host. When people have a lot of hookworms in their gut, the parasite can cause anemia and even limit children's ability to learn.
So one of the thoughts is, and especially in Alabama, that the myth of the slow-speaking sharecropper, usually African American, and there's some evidence that it was because of the hookworm burden.
Hookworm, or the germ of laziness as it's been called, was once widespread in the South. By around 1910, more than 7 million Southerners, both white and black, were infected, spurring a $1 million campaign to treat children in schools. As people moved to cities and sanitation improved in urban areas, hookworm became less of a focus, which is why there's very little information about its prevalence today. But many places in the rural South still struggle with sewage. In Lowndes County alone, where more than 70% of the population is black and 30% of residents live in poverty, close to a third of surveyed households say they've had sewage back up into their homes or pool in open areas. And that's just one of 13 counties in Alabama's Black Belt, where more than half of the soil isn't suited for a septic system, according to the EPA.
We found more than 30% of these at-risk populations had hookworm.
Were you surprised by the results of that study?
I was. It was shocking to me. Conditions I saw matched several conditions that I've seen in countries such as Honduras and Guatemala.
After the initial hookworm study was published, the Alabama Department of Public Health criticized it, stating that the study wasn't large enough. But many Lowndes County residents worry that talking to researchers about their issues with raw sewage could result in a fine. The Department of Health also stated that the CDC had failed to replicate the study's results. As the state medical officer, Dr. Scott Harris oversaw the response.
You know, we have a study that reached, kind of startling conclusions and wasn't supported by any other evidence that we had. And so,
Of which there was very little because nobody was looking at hookworm in Alabama.
Yeah, right. But if a third of all those folks have hookworm, we think that would show up sometime in some way.
Do you think it's possible, hypothetically, some people have a low burden of hookworm and that your surveillance system might have missed that and that those hookworms might still be affecting their health, their overall health? Do you think that's possible?
I suppose that's possible, sure. But I guess the point that I feel like I really labor to make is whether or not people have hookworms, the problem is you have impoverished people that don't have adequate facilities. They don't have wastewater treatment.
Has there been an attempt to try and increase interventions within poorer communities in Alabama?
We've met with the governor's office on a couple of occasions, and ultimately it's about resources. If we were able to get, sort of community lagoon type systems, and for Lowndes County alone, the cost was about 9 figures, and that would have covered about 3/4 of the county. And that's only one county in the Black Belt, out of a dozen. And so it's a tremendous need for resources that we have, and the response right now has been really incremental and, frankly not adequate.
Walter says he's never had hookworm, but he still worries about the raw sewage in his yard. Rogelio and his team plan to take hundreds of additional samples throughout the Black Belt over the next year.
Is it hard to see this and to have to deal with this every day?
And this may seem weird or stupid, but actually you've gotten used to it. It's like a hard thing in a pen.
Right.
You get used to it.
All right, there you go. That's Dr. Bradley. I know it's a little early before breakfast, but I see your face over there. So, folks, that was a piece from 60 Minutes. Lowndes County, Alabama, 2022. Population 70% black, but this is where the hookworm is a disease that affects learning. Because they can't afford to have septic put in. It's about $10,000. There's 30% unemployment there, mainly people of color. So it's costly to do this. They're not getting any help from the city or the state to put the type of septic in there. So if you're watching this, it's running into their yard. And in this piece, there's a playground where the kids can't even use the playground because it's just raw sewage in there. And you're walking through this sewage. It's backing up into their homes. And just, I saw your face when he was talking about the smell, but just imagine you're actually there smelling it.
Well, I lived it, Larry.
This
I lived it. I lived it in Augusta, Georgia.
But
in
this
fact,
was in what year?
This was in 1960s. But Larry, I lived this, you know, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this and I'm saying, well, I just recently come across some material that people in the old neighborhood that my family lived in, Hyde Park in Augusta, where they the organizations, the big plants and the big companies, the corporations, dumped waste in my community. Had a waste running through the irrigation ditches in my community. We swam in that, think as kids, didn't even think about it. And now we have people who are, who are dying with cancer. So I can relate to this. That's why I was making those facial expressions, because I can see it. Right. As a child, I lived through it. And it's constantly what happened in the South is that because of the hatred of people that look like us, they will move us into communities and deny us basic resources. Basic. I mean, this is just basic. This is just. I mean, how can you do a human being like this?
Bodily functions that they have to release.
It's just being human,
right?
Because they have the notion that you're subhuman, you're less than. They feel comfortable. I'm saying to myself, these individuals are paying taxes,
right?
And you're gonna tell me it's a resource issue? Right. They're paying taxes for this, and so this should have been a part of the plan when you even designed, at the very point when you started designing that neighborhood. They're dealing with waste, dealing with proper water supplies, and all that stuff should have been a part of the initial plan when you constructed the community. Right. That's what my problem is.
Right, but they said it's alluded to as it's called the Black Belt. It's only impacting pretty much black people, right?
And people that you throughout history you see as less than human.
Right.
So we don't really care about them. America has to deal with this issue in order for America to be what it proclaims to be.
Right. And the reason why I asked you when you recalled this was you said in the 60s. This is 2022, Dr. Bradley. This isn't this, and the fact that they refer to this as situations that they're more familiar with in third world countries. They talk about Honduras and places like that where the government isn't there. There's no infrastructure. This is the United States of America. This is the country where people go.
The richest in the world.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They storm the Capitol.
Exactly. Right. So those individuals have a right to storm the Capitol of Alabama.
For their rights.
For their rights. They're paying for this. Right. But yet, if they were storming the Capitol, they would be arrested for insurrection. There were the charges that the white folks are getting would not, this minor stuff would be out of the picture. It would be major. Right. This is the dual government that we talk about. You know what I mean? It's government for one set of people and government for another. That is not equal.
Exactly.
But I am appalled by this because I have lived it. I have lived it.
And you thought it was in the past.
And I thought it was in the past because we moved to Boston in 1967. We just recently found in Augusta that there was a major lawsuit against companies who were dumping waste, dumping contaminants into the water system in my community.
And to add insult to injury, as you said, like I said, if they report it or they complain about it, they don't help them with it. They fine them for running raw sewage.
Or they sue them.
Right, for running raw sewage into their yards where they have no alternative, right?
Exactly.
617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening to At the Round Table with Memley. I'm in the house, Larry Ellison, and Dr. Bradley is in the house. We are back from a little hiatus. We're talking about the situation down in Lowndes County, Alabama.
In fact, I just got a text from my family that said this was earlier than the 60s.
Wow.
That's when I can remember.
Okay.
All right, because I was in 56. But my sister, who was older than I, said, no, this happened long before you came on the scene.
Right, but I guess the question to her is that would she think it would still be taking place in 2022?
And I would say, knowing her, she would probably say, knowing America,
she's not
Absolutely.
surprised, but
it doesn't surprise me.
right. But
It
this is
doesn't
what I'm
surprise me.
saying. When folks are so, just think what happened if these folks decided that they were going to march on the Capitol of Alabama
There you go.
or Washington D.C.
There you go.
about their human rights, right?
I can guarantee you this. After the event, they will not be escorted downstairs to a car that they can move. They can just drive away.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Not in this America.
Yeah.
So I'm just. It's sad.
It's messy. It literally messy. It's what I'm saying. Is
That's
that,
an-
this is why
I like that point.
right. You guys took us, but this is what I'm talking about, Dr. Bradley. When we talk about, like you said, there's two Americas, right? And it's so blatant that with all the resources, right? I mean, they were just giving out trillions and trillions of dollars that someone who represents that community, right, whether they're black or white, they're congressmen, they're senators, right, should have said, hey, let's put some money in there to address this problem for these folks. But they said the black belt, like I said, the hookworm, and it talks about how it affects learning, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
people are walking around,
Yes.
these hookworms
Yeah.
are attaching themselves to them,
Yeah.
getting inside their guts and other people. And as
Yeah.
gross as it sounds, but this is what people are living, and we should all be appalled by.
But that support the ideology or the notion that people of color, black people in particular, are less intelligent. You know what I mean? So no, they're not. But if I can create a situation where they will become, then I'm comfortable with
Right.
that situation because
Right.
it's supporting my prophecy.
Right.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I say this,
Right.
and now you can see it, and not because it's natural, because I'm producing the environment in which that would manifest itself.
And Dr. When your unemployment rate is over 30%, so you know what the average income is, and it costs on average over $10,000 to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Where are these folks going to get the money to do so?
Yeah, but on the other side of that, Larry, we're paying $13 billion for an aircraft carrier. I mean,
Right.
it's like, come on, people.
Right.
Come on. You're paying some, this
Right.
is America.
Right.
One of the richest in the
Right.
world,
Right.
biggest economy in the world, and you can't put money into
Right.
a community that has raw sewage in the yard.
Right.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Right, but when you see this accident and you're watching this and you're looking at these folks, and then when they go to their government officials asking for help, all they do is add insult to injury by saying, "Hey, you need to fix this problem that you can't fix, or we're going to fine you for not taking care of it."
But when you're looking at the history, when I go, and I'm a student of history, I love it because it tells you where the country has gone and where it's going, where it has been and where it's going.
Yeah.
But all throughout the country, you can see when black people are challenging the government, usually what end up happening, they end up dead or they end up sued.
Right.
One of the two.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I can't think of the name of the individual. One of the individuals hired an attorney by the name of Ferguson to sue the government for restitution. All right. And what ended up happening was, I think his name was Haley, but what ended up happening is that they sued the attorney and they also sued her.
Wow.
The attorney got off, but she spent time in jail.
Wow.
Okay, I know that, and what they end up doing is suing her for mail fraud.
Well, see? 617-282-0685.
You don't win, man.
617-282-0665. Listen at the round table with Ma'am Leo. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table. Caller.
Good morning.
Yeah, you got to turn your radio down in the background there. What are you listening
Yes,
to?
I just did that. I apologize because I didn't know you were going to back
No.
up to me. So I was just, with the
We're gonna
delay,
see that.
trying to listen to the show and be, current and present.
Go ahead.
And so, Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Same
And
to
then,
you. We were just talking about getting you guys together to, we're still hearing the feedback in the background.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Yeah, so.
Is that better?
I'm getting feedback. I don't know where it's
Yeah,
coming from. It's coming from him?
Whatever device you're listening to, can you just turn that down while you're talking so that we can, or
Like a computer or something like that?
because if you're close to it,
Yeah.
I can hear myself.
You can get the
Is
computer
that
on
better
mute.
now?
No, actually, we still got you.
Yeah, right.
But I know where you're calling, and I will reach out to Keith, who happened to be in Atlanta today. But we're going to talk later on this evening, and I will make sure that I can get a time that I can get the two of you guys together.
Okay.
'Cause I think it's important to do that because I think they can both
The
feed off each
financial,
other.
absolutely.
That's the issue is wealth.
Right.
We have to learn how to build wealth.
Right.
You know, and you have to learn. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it's very important as well. Like one aspect of it is to have real estate, and that what the young lady from Hilton Realty was talking about. You know, definitely something that's been very important.
Yeah, we
as
definitely
well
have to
as
get her back on as well. I think maybe having the three of them, we'll do an hour and a half or so, and have each one of them do a kind of a block, and then bring them all together at the end of it. So I know I just was talking to Dr. Bradley off the air about coordinating that. He's going to quarterback that.
Yeah, I'm going to quarterback. In fact, Keith had asked for his number, and I wanted to make sure that it was okay to give his number to Keith, and so Keith can call
Absolutely.
you, and you guys can talk through it, and you all have a pretty good understanding of where each person is going to go. But if I can get you
I'll
from Larry,
send it to you.
You can text it to me, and I would text it down to Keith, and then we could we can get it going.
All right. Anything else you want to add there, Rose?
No, I mean, just again, just wishing the craziness of like what happened in the Capitol last year and how they're dealing with it, and I know like we're relating to what's going on in the city of Boston, and you guys are talking about the pick that the mayor had for, and she went with I believe you guys are mentioning Ed Davis.
Well, he's part of the selection committee, and with all that he's done. And during his time as commissioner, we just think it's just the wrong pick if you're talking about progression. If you're talking about the status quo,
exactly. If you're talking about a fresh start,
right,
about a new beginning,
right,
about giving the police a new perspective of new policing,
right,
you're bringing in someone that's
it's just going to be controversial. I mean, there's nothing that I could have a conversation with him in the room. I'd just be discussing what he did, not because I don't think he has any vision of inclusion in his vocabulary. So he wouldn't be someone I would even entertain even thinking of having a conversation with him about.
And then that's the wonderful thing about the show and like talking about it and getting that point across and the people being vocal about it. It's part of the beauty of democracy is to get the voices heard and then to amplify that voice, because if again, it's definitely like, again, the fact that you mentioned that, I was like, that's definitely in the wrong direction, and the fact that he's part of the selection committee, yes, that makes that definitely makes it. There's an issue with that as well.
Right, and even though he's one person, he still has an influence because he's part of the committee.
I would think he would have a significant. He would have an influence more so than the other individuals in the committee, because he have actually served in that capacity as police commissioner. So they're going to give deference to his opinion, and they're going to give, they're going to look at his opinion with a special eye because he has been there. I would like to have had someone on the committee who can actually bring voice to the committee on the issues that are people of color who are serving in law enforcement are experiencing. Because if the people of color are having problems, you know what's going to happen in the community.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's just as simple. It's just as simple as that.
This was a no-brainer of finding someone else. But thank you, Rose. Appreciate you, brother, and be well. All right.
And
take care.
Keith will be calling you, Rose.
All right.
Oh, definitely. Well, I welcome it.
Okay.
Other people can call too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah. So, like I said, back to our folks down in Lowndes County, Alabama. This septic situation. People say, well, why are you talking about that? Why should that be concerned? Because this is wrong in every way in a country. This was not from Honduras or some third world country. This is Alabama.
I just recently had an opportunity to go to Cabo San Lucas to spread my mother-in-law's ashes in the Pacific, and this is something that she asked us to do. And this is something that she provided resources to make sure that it get done. And we had to bring her grandkids with us. I bring this up because we went on an excursion, and the bus driver had to stop for us to use the bathroom. And we had to go to this outhouse. I hadn't used the outhouse since I was a kid in the 1960s. Right. We had to go to this outhouse in the rural parts of Mexico, And when I heard about this, I was thinking, "Oh my God! I just experienced." And when I walk on the land, you can, I had my shoes on, obviously, but you can smell the sewage.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my wife, "You're not going in there." You know what I mean? I'm not going. This is what we would do. We'll hold our bodily fluids until we get to where we're going. And luckily, it was not. It was less than a mile down the road, and we had a decent laboratory to use.
Right.
You know, you shouldn't live in America, though.
But
this
when
is America.
In America, when you think about an outhouse, you think about some construction site, right, where they don't because and it makes sense, and it's only a temporary because they haven't put an infrastructure in place that will then replace that, right? So this isn't a long term. They're not running hoses out into the yard, right? Because even then, these folks don't even would probably be in a better situation of having a porta potty than what they're up against today.
So the solution could be that for now, until you build a facility that can actually handle the level of sewage that's been produced.
Right. At least you can pump that out where it's not leaching into the yards. And
I don't understand, how can you actually sit down and plot out these neighborhoods in today's society are plotted out. They're constructed.
Yeah.
You know, how do you build these plans without putting in the ability for schools?
Because
putting in waste material, making that part
in
of
the story,
process.
Dr. Bradley, it's 70% people of color. They're the only ones impacted by it.
There you go.
30% unemployment, right? And who it's impacting.
Yeah.
And these are the same people in these same states such as this that want to take away your rights.
Yeah. These are the individuals
voting rights.
Voting Republican.
Right.
And you know
these that don't want to have your voice, because if they take away your voice, even if you complain, who's listening?
You complain to whom?
Who's listening?
Exactly.
Who's listening?
Wow. That is sad.
This is 2022.
That
2022.
that is
And
sad.
I mean, if you watch this story, it's just, and the reason why, because it broke my heart.
Yeah.
I'm saying to myself, wow, people still actually are living under these conditions.
But you know, I mean, I have folks that are still living in Georgia. You know, I'm sure you have people that still living in Mississippi.
Yeah.
You reach out to the rural parts of those states, and I'm pretty sure they can tell you some similar situations. You know, they're living under, or they know about.
Yeah.
You know, America has a lot to be atoned for, man. They have a lot
good luck with that.
A lot to deal with.
Let's get some of these comments.
So Ken Russell says, "Good morning from Washington, D.C."
Good morning from the nation's capital. We're coming for you.
And Brother Jamal says, Lowndes County,
Alabama
is where Stokely Carmichael first said Black Power.
Yeah.
And it is the birthplace of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we got a lot to clean up down there. I mean, it's just, it's just, like I said, how can this be? How can this be? And we can't sit back and do nothing. So we, even though we're here, we can go. You just talking off the air how you have a plumbing problem that you got to go home and deal with, right? Nothing of this magnitude.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm just trying to. I can just go to YouTube and try to figure out how to do it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But this is serious.
It's very serious, and it's not just the sanitary. It's a health issue.
Yeah.
I had to look. I didn't know what a hookworm was.
I kind of knew what it was and the impact it has on your body. I just didn't think that you would experience that in America, in today's America. That's something you see in third world country, but one can argue that Alabama and areas of Alabama could be equivalent to the third world country.
And parts of the South, Mississippi, like you said, there are folks who live there. But when you see, this is of a scale where they have gone to get help, and they're saying, you don't matter.
Yeah.
Your situation doesn't matter.
But what
it's in the black belt.
But what is sad about that, for the last 400 and something years, has always been the situation with black people.
Yeah.
You know, even when you try to assimilate, you still less than. You know, it's always been this fight to prevent equality between whites and blacks.
This is why I have no tolerance for people who want to defend this crazy. Why you had to get up and excuse yourself. I'm not putting up with that in 2022. I'm not putting up with that, with this foolishness. I'm not.
I can't get over that.
I'm not putting up.
Use the scripture to explain lynching. I don't get it.
617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. You're listening at the Round Table with me. This is our first broadcast of 2022. I know, folks, we're talking about what's taking place down in Lowndes County, Alabama, where 70% of the population is black, and the area that's being impacted is in a rural area where they have no type of sewage system. It's going, they have to use, and it's going into their yard. It's going into their front yards. If you watch this piece, it was on 60 Minutes. The kids, the playground. I mean, it's when the smell. I just watching your face, Dr. Bradley.
I've been there.
And
I mean,
it's almost like you could smell it through the microphone.
I've been there.
Right.
Larry,
So
I'm telling
the
you
vision
now,
was set for you.
The vision was set for
And
me.
your family members were responding to you.
Because we all have been there. You know, living in the South, you know, you can kind of like, I can visualize it easily. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my God.
But this was in an era you're talking about when it was more expected, not say accepted, but expected, right? That in 2022, that the basic sanitary rights of people to have plumbing, to be able to go and release the bodily functions, right, in a manner respectful, right, and health-wise, that we're still living like you said, as they described it, as if we were in a third world country, and this is a 3-4 hour plane ride.
But I'm sorry, call you Dan. But Larry, what we have to understand is that if I'm sitting in my living room here in Boston, and I'm saying, well, what does it have to do with me? See, that's where we are wrong.
Right.
You know, well, I can go to my bathroom and I can use the bathroom and that stuff goes away. You know, I'm living a decent life. I'm worrying about me. But you have to, and I think Dr. King said it beautifully. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
This is a threat to you. I mean, because it may not be that, but because of the fact that the representative of that particular part of the country is working is in Washington, serving on a committee somewhere that's actually promulgating or producing laws or producing practices that going to impact you in Boston.
Right.
Do you want the person who's actually representing those folks to actually be or serving on a committee? See, that's how we have to think. Is that if they can do it to their own, they can definitely do it. Support something like that for me.
And to your point, regardless to where they live in Alabama, there is a congressperson and a senator, a governor, and some elected officials that represent them.
That's right.
Regardless to where you live. That's right. That are at the nation's capital, at the local level.
That's my point.
Right. So how is this being ignored? And like I said, when we talked about trillions of dollars, when we talk about that Zanara, the one of the Boston Marathon bombers, received a stimulus check in jail. Yes. Right.
Are you serious?
Yes, it was on the news. Yes, he received a stimulus check, and now they're gonna retake it from him, and it's in his fund there, right? And distribute
it's in his canteen.
Yeah, they're gonna take it and distribute it to the victims of 9/11, which isn't gonna make a difference. It's more symbolic. But I'm saying is that you can get money to him, but we can't get money to these families. These folks who are Americans who've done nothing wrong. The only crime they have is, and it's not a crime, it's being poor and black. Being poor and black
has been a crime in America since its existence.
Right. And that's why I said I have no tolerance in 2022 for foolishness for folks who want to defend, and call yelling a fire and a fire is not a fire. You can do it. No, I'm not talking about your semantics this year. No, I'm not putting up with it, and I'm not walking away.
Well, I think when we first started this morning, we talked about the situation of the January 6th of 2021.
The insurrection.
The insurrection. I think, again, a good example of how people are being treated based on who they are.
Absolutely.
Based on who they are.
Look, they had the Million Man March several years ago now. We're going almost over 20 years or so, probably, and then they had the anniversary. Do you think if any of those folks down there would have pivoted towards the Capitol, right? Do you think that they were not prepared for that visit by those black folks that came there?
If I'm not mistaken, there was a Black Lives Matter protest where they had the National Guards already on the Lincoln Monument, already there waiting.
You remember the one where Donald Trump had them clear out so he could go across the street to the church with the Bible upside down?
Yes. So my thing is that, why is this search that we're looking at what the police department did, the Capitol Police, how ineffective they were, at that particular time. But they were very well structured, very well organized when they had given a permit for a Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah.
So as long as we have these differences, we're going to have a problem in this country.
What comes to my mind, I'm really curious to hear your perspective on. You talk about protests and peaceful protests and the contrast in democracy. Bloody Sunday.
Yes. Right.
Peaceful protesters.
Okay.
It was televised, right? This brutal beating, right? This was law enforcement. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And that was all about democracy. Peaceful protests
Right.
just to be able to vote.
It's called privilege.
So that's exactly what it is. Because when you look at, and I'm going to go back to the so-called finding of this country, the Declaration of Independence that was drafted by Jefferson. As you read it, the second verse, the paragraph talks about being able to abolish government when it doesn't provide for you. Well, if as a black citizen, I can argue that our government hasn't provided for us, so we should have a right to do it. But let us try that. Let us try doing what the white citizens did on January 11th to see exactly
January
what happens.
6th.
January 6th, I'm sorry, and seeing exactly what happens. Instead, they're telling us, "Oh, you didn't see what what was happening." But I hear you. But you have to also keep in mind, and I often go back to this: policing in America is the vast mechanism of enforcement of an unjust society. Think about that. So the policing department, this is why I'm concerned about the mayor picking
Davis, right, exactly.
Because that department, that entity is responsible for enforcing the laws of an unjust society. And so its target is the unjust law. So what do? They go towards the people that they have over the years, in the history, enforcing those laws against people of color who they want to keep in place, because the laws are written to keep those individuals in place. So we talk about, and I give a little history, we talk about the Second Amendment, rights to carry a firearm. Well, that right was put in place because of the militia. The militia was put in place because of the possibility of slave rebellion. It had nothing to do with civil disorder. It was about slave rebellion. They were afraid of the slaves because in places like South Carolina, you had more slaves than you had free white folks.
Right.
So keep in mind, you had also had the rebellion in Haiti, that was successful. In that on that island, where they actually enslaved the French enslaved the people of color, black people there, and they had successfully rebelled. So slave masters were afraid here. Right. So the issue around the Second Amendment was all about keeping the slaves in place.
Well, and this is just a modern day version of it.
That's all it is. That's
right?
where I'm going.
Right. By trying to take away your rights to vote.
Changed. It has
no,
not
it's
changed.
and that's the sad part is that people can't identify it, right? That I think there's a lot of complacency on the parts of folks who should really be concerned about this. And they say it's not just like this situation in sewage. It just shouldn't just concern you if you're not having to deal with it down there.
It should concern you.
It's a human being.
It's a human being thing. As a God-loving, God-fearing human being, you should have pity, have concern about that.
Right.
But I go back to slavery again. Everything in America, its institutions was shaped by slavery,
and still is.
Still is. I mean, I can give you a good example would be the way that we interact with employee versus employer, productivity in our industry. That was shaped by slavery. I give you a name, Thomas Aflac. You think about the duck, Aflac.
Right, insurance, right.
Thomas Aflac was the individual who actually created plantation productivity logs. He was the individual who actually wrote the show you exactly from how much cotton each slave would pick, how you can log it. He did the accounting for slave production.
Wow.
And how the employee, the slave, should interact
was
with.
Was he affiliated with the Aflac Insurance? Is he related?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to cancel my insurance.
But that's the name. Thomas Aflac created accounting for plantations, and the plantation that he actually was working on was a Greenwood plantation.
But before we take this call, it goes back to something you said, Dr. Bradley, and it's stuck in my head, is that, this country, the Civil War was fought over slavery. And Germany has no statues of Hitler, like you said, the folks who lost. Right? There's no, you go to a museum or something, but there is no tributes to the people who lost, who were fighting on the unjust side to keep people oppressed.
Well, I don't buy a Ford today. I know you own one, but I'm going to educate you, brother. General Lee's body is in Lee's University. I think is in Lexington, Virginia.
Okay.
And it's also a chapel. His tomb in the chapel is on that university. He was actually the commandant of that university. The president would be today, and that his chapel and his tomb was actually falling into disrepair, and they raised money. The only company that actually gave a sizable check to refurbish his tomb was Ford Motor Company.
Yeah.
And Ford Motor Company really financed the refurbishing of his tomb. And here's a man now who gave his life, to keep people like me enslaved. And I'm going to buy property, buy products from a company that funded his. So we have to be aware of where our money's going. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
We have to understand our buying power. We have to look for those, do business with those companies and those corporations that will actually respect us as a people.
Mm-hmm.
Until we can do that, America's not going to change.
No, it's not. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning. I'd just like to reiterate what he said and go back to the words of Martin Luther King of like injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And the boycott, that's what changed the busing. And that the boycott should change everything.
Right.
That's where you heard him in the dollar, the pocketbook.
Yeah, no matter what your skin color is, if your dollars are green,
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's the bottom line is it's like if we exactly exercise our power of not
We
purchasing,
have to understand that.
and then focusing those dollars to where they should belong to building intergenerational
Right,
wealth.
but see, the problem with that is, like I said, that's why we want to get you guys on to get people to do that. I mean, just think about it. I was telling someone, we talk about home ownership, and even when we've been talking about it for years, even when the study came out with the Boston Globe, the net worth of blacks in Boston is $8 compared to $250,000 for white Boston.
Yeah.
That even then, it didn't spark in people, well, maybe I should try to go out and get a home. If you had acted then and purchased a home 10, 12 years ago when the story came out, and look at the prices of homes today, you would be sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah,
But you have to also understand it.
You built it.
Yeah.
But you have to also don't lose sight of the history of America and actually how they tried to regulate or prevent people that look like you and I from buying homes.
Oh yeah, the redlining.
Redlining.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, but you're right. That is the way that we earn our
We're
wealth.
consumers.
But the issue here is that we have been so programmed to think about our entertainment more than we think about our education.
Right.
And
Think about it. Sunday's Best, that was the only time when the Negro slaves could go out and interact with other Negro slaves because they allowed them to go to church, and that's when that term Sunday's Best came about. And people go, "I'm dressed better than you." That's and that's where their the cockery or whatever. Of that idea of being
Hey, well, stand by. I want to bring this other caller into the conversation. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
So on the topic of equity and inclusion, and I mean it could be fake, but her next Wu's most recent appointment as of yesterday for the new equity director, or equity chief, it's like she has someone who, there's a screenshot out of her on social media calling cops pigs. So another person she's appointed as chief who slurs. So it's like, does no one do any background check? Because
clearly you.
This post was just in 2020. I mean, it was literally only about a year ago, and she just appointed this person yesterday as the new equity chief. So you have the equity chief, supposedly, and supposedly, according to the screenshot that's out there, of her calling cops pigs, and she's supposed to be the equity chief.
Maybe she'll be the next police commissioner. I don't know. Like I said,
it's like you got her now as the equity chief calling cops pigs. You have the comms director calling eyes chinky. It's like, who's next with all these chiefs and directors?
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know who their advisors are there. I know they brought in a lot of new people, and it's showing their inexperience. It's one thing you have people around you during your campaign. You have that youth and that, you need that enthusiasm. But you need a mixture of folks with some experience as well are advising you, and folks who have experienced in the right way, not just because they have been part of the status quo. Because Mayor Menino didn't do a lot for black folks. I mean, there was a lot of symbolism in the community, things that we got, everyone else got as well. If there was a new park in the neighborhood, people got excited about that. But the folks who built the park were the ones who really were excited because they're the ones who got paid to put it there, right?
And they didn't look like us.
No, that's what I'm saying. So there was the wealth. Yeah, we get to enjoy it, but so do other people in West Roxbury and other parts of the city as well. They get to enjoy it, but they also get to benefit from the infrastructure going in place.
Amen.
And that's the part that we seem to get. They're putting in. Yeah, the roads. They're going everywhere. The people, the roads in the city, traffic light. You go out in West Roxbury. They have nice traffic lights out there, right? We have traffic lights here, but nothing like they have out there. Their police station doesn't even look like a police station.
It looks like a home,
right?
It kind of like blends in with the surrounding buildings.
And there's a reason for that, because they don't want that neighborhood to look like it's under siege.
Yeah.
Exactly, because Menino was a racist, plain and simple, and it showed so much with the things that was going on while he was mayor.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got Menino in the female form.
Well, she learned.
Looks like.
She learned under him, and it looks like some of that's coming out. It's unfortunate, and like I said, I think there are a lot of people who are going to be disappointed in watching what's taking place. And again, we get a little symbolism thrown in here. We get a few of the right people, and then we get a lot of the wrong people who null and void out the good people there. Yeah. So I don't know, Pastor Hobbs, I know you're looking at your something you want to say.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One is in terms of these appointments that we need to be mindful of. So you're talking about on the city level, but also we know that Governor Baker, right, is talking. I'm hearing per the Globe that Hayden is supposed to be the pick, and I don't know how folks feel about that. But I'm just saying, in terms of us being mindful of who these are people who are being appointed, who we're electing, and as all these shifts are happening, and also in terms of equity and the disparity is. The U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins, I understand that she is being denied protection that comes with that position, if that's correct.
Well, here's the problem that is that she's not being denied protection because she just resigned as the district attorney, and as a district attorney, the reason why in my opinion, she wasn't given protection is because she was already being provided by the Boston Police Department. Okay. The district attorney gets security detail from the Boston Police Department. There are officers that are assigned to her office that are with her. Right, exactly. Where she gets that protection. So that's the reason why I believe she didn't get the security detail from for her as a U.S. attorney elect, because she already had it. I think if she had not had that, they would have provided it for her immediately. But it was like, but
the federal government provides the security detail, the Secret Service, right?
It's not it's the Marshals, U.S. Marshals. U.S. Marshals. That's what I was thinking. Right. The U.S. Marshals provide her with her security detail once she's sworn in. Like I said, I think she would have got it early on had she not already had. They were like, okay, we'll pick it up once BPD. So once she resigned the other day, I think she immediately started getting the U.S. Marshals protection for her, because now she had no protection. But since she was in a situation where most aren't, they usually don't come from having that security detail with them already when they come in. Just like Mayor Walsh had security detail from being the mayor when he left, and as soon as he left, then not the Secret Service, not the Marshals, just another one. They fall under the Treasury, but they're not Secret Service. There's a different ones that protect.
There's so many of them.
I know that protect the cabinet members.
It's so many of them. I lose track of them.
Yeah. But with the death threats
the federal government,
with the death threats that she's been getting as the first African American woman in this position, I mean, does that make any difference, or it still would just
it does, because it's not like she has an entourage like the police, like the president or the vice president or a cabinet member may have. She may have 2 or 3 people assigned to her, just as she had when she was a DA from the Boston Police Department. So she had adequate protection for her at her level that she's at. I mean, the threats didn't elevate. If there was a particular threat that was credible, they would probably increased it. But I think she's fine, as you could see. And it wasn't that she was left to fend for herself. And I think that's what I don't want people to think, that somehow she wasn't given it because of who she was. She wasn't given it at the time because it wasn't needed. She was already getting security detail from the police department, which
and
came.
And was Boston giving her that security?
Oh, she had, yeah. She's driving it because there's several officers that are assigned to her office up there. The detectives and stuff that are assigned to the DA's office. They are part of her security detail. I know several of them that are, matter of fact, that were there under Dan Conley that stayed in that position when she transitioned into it. So it comes with the job.
That point of clarity. But with regard to the appointments, what is your perspective in terms, again, as the governor has the power to be able to appoint a person?
Right, to finish out the remainder of her term. I don't know much about the name of the individual who I heard had been offered the position. I don't know much about him. From what I'm hearing, he is the chair of the sex offenders registry, something of that nature. And so I'm not sure I knew he's an attorney, and that's what I haven't done any research on him as well. But I mean, in interest in that is that I know Rasan Hall, who was with the ACLU, is running for district attorney down in Plymouth County. So he has launched his exploratory committee. So there's changes taking place, but no, she's fine as far as her security and as far as adequate. She's not been left to fend for herself.
But to the point of us being mindful and holding folks accountable of these appointments, whether it's the city level or whether it's the state level, of us being just aware and you know what I'm saying? And I don't know. Again, they have the ability to be able to appoint. The governor obviously can appoint who he wants.
When there's vacancy, yes.
When there's vacancy, but then that person will actually be elected.
Well, they have to run. So it's only for the remainder of
that term.
Right. Just like when Marty Walsh left, Kim Janey, the acting mayor, because of the way the structure of the city charter and government. So, Rose, before we go, we got 30 seconds for you, and we'll give Helen 30 seconds. We've got to get out of here.
I got to go deal with the plumbing problem.
Just adding in. Actually, the new equity director that she recently appointed as of yesterday was actually her constituency director on a campaign.
Yeah, right.
So she's very familiar with that person.
Right. So they had to hire you to do her background checks on her folks before they hire her. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Rose.
She does a good job.
Exactly. In real time. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to get winding up. Dr. Bradley, I know you've got some things to get to when you get out of here as well. Vacation is over, folks.
Vacation over. I mean, when you're on a home, you are your own superintendent.
Right. You know,
you got to make it work.
That's fine. Yeah, it's a lot going on, and they said, you know, we got to keep looking out for other folks. Like I said, those folks down in Lowndes County, Alabama, what they're going through. People feel like it's not my problem.
It is our problem. It's all our problems.
Yeah, and when that old saying, when the Jews when they came for us, nobody did. And they came for this, and then when they came for you, there was nobody left. Right.
Exactly.
So you think an injustice is an injustice.
It's an injustice anywhere. It's a threat to justice everywhere.
And that's so true. I mean,
absolutely true.
If you I think people have gotten so complacent waiting for someone else to do the work for them, someone else to save them. Like Leon said, no one is coming to save us but us. And the sad part, there's not enough us that are willing to take on the job.
What happens is that some of us get in a position of authority. We think we have authority.
I think you got to proceed. Hello, glad you corrected that.
We get in a position, where we're getting a little bit of money, and we feel very comfortable. And we say, "Well, I got mine. I'm not worried about anyone else." And that's not always the case.
Well, what is that saying we always say around here, Dr. Bradley?
Just wait a minute, your turn.
I said, if you're here long enough, you'll get a turn, right? And some have gotten multiple turns, and even, people, whether they said whatever side of the fence you came in on with the former Commissioner Dennis White, who I think served in that capacity for a couple of days, not on the merits of what took place in his home, but how he was treated, right? He didn't get the same benefit of the doubt that anyone that didn't look like him got in the past, right? They didn't call him to advise on this committee. He was a former commissioner, right? Even though it's a couple of days, right?
But still.
And because clearly you're not looking at the person's record, right? So why?
Well, we'll see.
Why not him? Why not him? Why not him?
I don't know.
I know.
I mean, we always they come to our community, and I think people need to understand this. and they talk a good game.
Well, you know what they say: you get the government you deserve.
That's right. That's where I'm going. They come to our community, they talk a good game, and then when they get in the office, you see the real person. And then once it's time to run again, they come back. They think because your memory is so short, they come back and talk another good game. Same old thing. Same old.
Well, they keep thinking that, but we're here to remind.
I hear you.
We're here to remind.
But my point is, when you do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
All right.
What does that mean?
Great segue out here, folks. We got to go. You've been listening to At the Round Table with Mamleo. Stay warm, stay well, and hopefully with God's blessing, we'll be back next week. Until then, take care.
Be blessed.